Patients across the country have accused cosmetic surgery providers of botched procedures, leaving them with scarring and even medical issues. Factfinder investigator Sierra Cummings looking into one doctor facing accusations right now and how the cosmetic surgery industry operates as a whole.
Kayla Cannon and Sarah Dunham, both patients of the same Atlanta area doctor.
He was like, I can fix you, make you even better. That's when he advised the eyelid surgery as well as cheek implants.
All I asked was just to be tightened a little.
Both went for plastic surgery procedures and are now among 9 patients suing Dr. Harvey Chip Cole, claiming they are deformed. Kayla's lawsuit cites what other consulting doctors say went wrong: too much tissue removed from her eyes, the areas over-tightened, one of her cheek implants allegedly infected too. The suit saying Dr. Cole failed to recognize and properly treat by not immediately removing it. In response of legal filings, the doctor denies all wrongdoing, arguing the facts are incomplete and out of context with respect to Kayla's medical history.
Let's be really honest. I'm disfigured.
Sarah's surgery included a cheek lift, lip lift, eyelid, and ear pinning surgery. She's accusing Dr. Cole of damaging facial nerve and removing too much tissue.
Why is it so important for you to share your experience?
I don't want him to continue to do it to other people.
They went to him to make things better, and all he did was make them worse.
Attorney Alex C. represents all the patients, which Dr. Cole's lawyer says there's grave concerns about. That Dr. Cole questions how it is possible that a single plaintiff's attorney has been retained by several former patients, adding Cole will fight the claims against him.
You see a pattern in practice of upselling patients for procedures that they didn't need, and then on top of that, doing those procedures incorrectly.
While Cole is not certified by the American Board of Plastic Surgery, he is accredited by the American Board of Ophthalmology, one of 24 medical specialties that require years of additional training to meet stringent gold standard certification training and examination requirements. Board-certified ophthalmologists may perform oculofacial surgeries as board-certified plastic surgeons. Cole also holds memberships in cosmetic surgery, oculofacial plastic surgery, and laser surgery groups that are not recognized by the American Board of Medical Specialties. A plastic surgeon who reviewed Sarah and Kayla's case questioned Dr. Cole's knowledge and skill and said the hospital violated the standard of care by credentialing Dr. Cole to perform these procedures. Our team found lawsuits and cases across the country and looked deeper into the world of cosmetic surgery as an industry, finding licenses, certifications, credentials, and qualifications vary across states, disciplines, and medical settings. But we found in every state, doctors are legally allowed to do surgeries, including cosmetic, without being certified by the American Board of Plastic Surgery.
If you are a family medicine physician with a medical license in your state, you can perform surgery.
Back in Georgia, the medical board would not confirm whether it is investigating or not. However, these patients say they've filed complaints telling investigators they are now forever scarred in more ways than one.
It's hard to look at. It's hard for you, it's hard for me, it's hard for anybody else. That doesn't go away.
And if you have a story we want to hear from you, to submit a tip, you can call us or email our Factfinder investigative team.